listen, I understand pharmaceutical need to spend a lot of money on research and development, but the bonuses and the money that we give to them way overshadows what the cost to the consumer is, and we'd have to fix that. It's like she has said, not on healthcare, but on the oil companies. She would take away the gigantic tax subsidies for the oil companies. That is your money that you are giving. ExxonMobil, as you know, just had the biggest corporate profit last year of any corporation in the history, not America, of the world, in the history of the universe. And yet you're giving tax subsidies to them every year. That's just fundamentally not right. The first thing she'll do is get rid of the tax cut for the top 1%, the Bush tax cuts. First thing she would do. You know, when you read my book right here, I talk about, you know, I started my first business when I was 14 years old because I needed to go to college and started a bunch of companies. I was able to retire at a young age. Got lucky, I worked hard. You know, I'm in that top 1%. Did it myself, got lucky. But you know, I've gotten 6 tax cuts from George Bush. You're giving me, a guy like me, a tax cut and 1.2 million kids lose their after-school program. It's fundamentally wrong. You're giving me tax cuts and we can't get body armor for our troops in Iraq. It's wrong. I'm going to pay more taxes. That's okay. I'm fine with that, as long as the government does a good job and doesn't waste it, to make sure that our money is being well spent. I remind you that under Bill Clinton, he created more millionaires and billionaires than any other president in the history of our country. But you know what? At the same time, more people moved out of poverty, and disposable income was at an all-time high. Everybody benefited, and that's what you ought to do with the tax code system. So the same thing with health care. Everybody would be in the system. Everybody will be able to afford it under her plan. And if you go on HillaryClinton.com, she lays it all out in excruciating detail for people to look at. Yes, sir.
Any rough idea, say a person's making minimum wage, or say they're making $8 an hour, $16,000 a year. Any rough idea what that would cost them under her?
Well, it's all, I don't want to do it off the top of my head. It's all on her. If you go on the website, it's all, she's got it all written out there in detail, exactly what you'd have to pay. But everybody has to be included. That's the thing, you have to be in the system. Yes, sir.
We have a problem with funding, especially secondary education within the state of Ohio. Matter of fact, Ohio is one of the highest as far as tuition payments go for public universities. Is there any
the state contribution?
Yeah, right. Well, no. What the state contributes to, like Bowling Green,
right,
is extremely low percentage-wise compared to what it was even 30 years ago. This is and because of that, our tuition has gone up. Just not Bowling Green, but throughout all the public universities in the state of Ohio. And it seems to be hitting Ohio especially bad, but tuition's going up everywhere. What is it that Hillary Clinton could do or would do to either A, reduce tuition, or B, help with student loans? Because I'll tell you what, if we can put $1 million, what is it, a day, an hour, a minute, I don't know, in Iraq, how many books can we buy with that? When are we going to stop buying bullets and buy books? Because a society as a whole that funds bullets more than books is a society that will not be here in 100 years. I guarantee you that. Because we can't talk, all we can do is shoot. So, there you go.
I agree. We've spent over $600 billion in Iraq today, and all we've done is create a civil war. She has a whole issue as it relates to student loans. She's also talked about freezing the rate of student loans where they are today. If you agree that you'd be willing to do community service, she has debt forgiveness, loan forgiveness, interest rate reduction, which I think is important. If you're willing to give a little bit of time back, do some community type service, an AmeriCorps type project. You know, she's got programs that would eliminate your student interest or take off some of your student loans. She's got a whole plan. I mean, education has been a big deal for her. Pre-K education, that was her bill, as you know, in the Senate that just went through. But she works so hard to make sure everybody in America is entitled to pre-K. Secondary education, postgraduate education. You know, we need to put a lot more money in education. She's got a $50 billion project, which she calls an Apollo project, on the whole climate global issues, that we need to create jobs in that area. We need to invest a lot more money in science and technology, which, as you know, the Bush administration has cut dramatically. In education, in secondary education, a lot more money should be applied to the sciences. But going to your specific point on interest rates, she has a plan there. If you're willing to give some time back, she's willing to, has a plan to cut and eliminate your student loans entirely.
So if we give time back after we graduate,
Yep.
well,
If you're willing to commit to community service, or while you're in school.
right, the only flaw I see with that is if you do it afterwards, the problem is a lot of us need jobs exactly right after we work or after we graduate. So actually committing a lot of time to volunteer, I mean, how many hours, do you have any idea of
Well,
how
it
long?
wouldn't necessarily be all volunteer. If you're willing to do into a community, maybe you go teach in a low-income project area. I mean, you get paid for it, but if it's deemed a community service type project, then they would forgive your student loan.
So when you say community service, you're not talking
Not
strictly
free.
volunteer?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But we need teachers in certain schools and things like that who'd be willing to do it. That again, HillaryClinton.com, she lays that whole plan out. Like your sweater.
Got it.
St. Patrick's Day, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
In the
Bowling
Guinness,
Green tradition.
Of course.
I've been there, trust me, I've been there.
You got your tickets though?
I actually took a Stein from there, to be honest. I went with Bill Clinton, actually, I was drinking in the Guinness factory. Yes, sir.
What is the position of the Hillary campaign in regards to gay marriage, and does the campaign see that as a state issue or a federal issue?
None of the Democratic candidates who ran for president, except for Dennis Kucinich, were for gay marriages. Not one of the, Dennis Kucinich was the only of the 9 who supported it.
And in regards to civil unions?
100% for civil unions. I think all the Democratic candidates.
And as far as state or federal issue?
I think primarily, let the states make the decisions for it, I think primarily, depending on what the issue is. But only Kucinich was for gay marriages, all the Democrats were for civil unions.
What about the issue of deindustrialization and jobs leaving America? What does Hillary Clinton propose to do about that issue?
Well, it goes what I said earlier, the whole project of $50 billion, we got to create, just like we did actually invent the internet here in America. Al Gore and others helped with it. I mean, he actually was at the forefront of it. But we have to do this whole issue of the climate. We got to take the leadership issues on that and the global warming. We have to be on the forefront. Science, technologies, we have to do better education to create more jobs in this country. We have to deal with the trade agreements a lot tougher than we have been in the past. We're all for trade agreements, but you got to make sure the country over there is held to the same standards that our workers have here. I mean, if they have no environmental laws over there and they, paying folks $1 an hour, it is very hard for our workers to compete against it. So, it's globalization, but it's actually doing deals and negotiating trade agreements where we can be competitive. But her big thing that she has always talked about is we have to put a lot more money in science, technology. We have to be the economic engine again of creating jobs in this country. It's hard to do that when you cut all the funding in science and technology. She would put all that back. And she believes that there literally are hundreds of thousands of jobs that we can go out and create on the whole global climate issue.
But would those jobs really be available for people who didn't have access to higher education? Or would there be jobs available for working class people who traditionally would have gone to work in steel mills and things like that?
Well, we have to create, listen, it's clear, here we are in Ohio, where we've lost so many manufacturing jobs, we have to create new business sectors here. It's not just in the global climate issue. We have to be a lot more competitive and we have to create more industries, and it's going to start through education. Re-education, we have to put money in so that people can get trained if you're 50 years old, and if you got to get retrained, the government should help you do that so you can create a job for you. This home foreclosure issue, I mean, we've got record home foreclosures going on today. She